Opus 4.8 just dropped, but if you use it exactly like 4.7, you are probably missing the point. The headlines are easy. Anthropic says Opus 4.8 is better at coding, better at agentic work, better at tool use, and available today at the same regular price. It also keeps the big-ticket stuff people care about: 1 million context support on the Claude API, Bedrock and Vertex, effort control, fast mode, and new Claude Code workflows. But that is not the real story. The real story is that Claude is becoming less like one smarter chat box and more like a workflow system. So in this video, I am not going to do the usual benchmark confetti cannon. Benchmarks matter, but nobody ships software by staring lovingly at a leaderboard. The useful question is, how do you actually slot Opus 4.8 into real developer and agent workflows tomorrow morning? Here are the 5 buried workflow gems. First, effort control. Anthropic now gives users a more explicit control for how much effort Claude puts into a task. In the docs, Opus 4.8 defaults to high effort across surfaces. On Claude.ai, higher effort means Claude thinks more deeply and uses more of your limits. Lower effort means faster answers and less limit burn. In Claude Code, the higher setting maps into the kind of deeper work you want for hard engineering tasks. The mistake is thinking, great, I should just max this out forever. That is like using a chainsaw to cut a sandwich. Technically powerful, socially concerning. The goal is not maximum intelligence all the time. The goal is matching depth to task risk. Use low effort for triage, quick edits, formatting, first-pass summaries, and boring chores. A commit message does not need to go on a spiritual retreat. Use medium or default effort for normal coding help, drafting, source reading, and ordinary analysis. The docs say Opus 4.8 supports a 1 million token context window by default on the Claude API, Amazon Bedrock, and Vertex AI, with a 200K context caveat on Microsoft Foundry. That is a serious amount of room. But the best use of long context is not throwing your entire repo into the model like laundry into a suitcase 5 minutes before a flight. The headline is length. The value is continuity. For real work, give Opus 4.8 a curated memory: the repo map, relevant files, failing tests, design constraints, prior decisions, style rules, open questions, and what has already been tried. If you are debugging a multi-service issue, do not just dump logs, code, docs, and vibes. Give it the service map, the error path, the last known good state, the relevant deploy, the tests that fail, and the constraints it must not violate. Third, cleaner tool loops. This is one of the less flashy parts, but it matters more than a lot of benchmark screenshots. Anthropic docs mention better tool triggering, and the launch blog highlights testers seeing cleaner tool use and fewer steps for the same intelligence. For agent workflows, that is not cosmetic. A useful coding agent loop is simple: inspect, edit, test, verify, summarize. If one model needs 20 tool calls to do what another model does in 8, that is not just slower. It is more chances to open the wrong file, more chances to misread a test, more chances to drift, and more opportunities for the agent to walk into a wall and confidently describe the wall as progress. Agents win by wasting less. So when you test Opus 4.8, do not only ask, did it get the answer right? Ask how it got there. Did it inspect before editing? Did it run the relevant tests? Did it avoid unnecessary calls? Did it verify the result before declaring victory? That is the difference between an impressive demo and a reliable work loop. Fourth, mid-task system messages. This sounds like one of those API changes only 3 platform engineers and a very caffeinated documentation writer could love, but it is a buried gem. Anthropic says the Messages API now accepts system entries inside the messages array, immediately after a user turn, subject to placement rules. The practical meaning is that an agent harness can update instructions mid-task without pretending the user said it, and without restating the entire system prompt. The docs also call out preserving prompt cache hits on earlier turns. That matters because real agents do not live in one frozen prompt. Their environment changes. Maybe an agent starts in read-only mode. After it passes inspection, the harness updates the system context to allow edits. Maybe the budget tightens mid-run. Maybe a risky module is detected and the harness adds stricter test requirements. Maybe a deploy changes the environment context. Before, many systems had to shove those updates into awkward user messages or rebuild the whole prompt. Now, the harness can express that as system context. That is not a flashy feature. That is infrastructure, and infrastructure is usually boring right up until it becomes the reason something works. Now, the top gem, dynamic workflows in Claude Code. This is the part I would put in the final third because it makes the other pieces click. Anthropic's Dynamic Workflows post says Claude Code can plan a hard task, write orchestration scripts, run tens to hundreds of parallel subagents in one session, check their work, and merge results back into a coordinated answer. It is available in Research Preview in Claude Code CLI, Desktop, the VS Code extension for Macs, Team, and Enterprise plans when enabled, and also through the API and major cloud platforms. Anthropic also warns that dynamic workflows can consume substantially more tokens, so start scoped. That caveat matters. This is not a toy to unleash on your repo because you are feeling emotionally experimental at 1 a.m. But the shape is important. The old assistant model is one agent walking file by file. Open a file, think, edit, run a command, repeat. The new shape is map the repo, split the work, assign subagents, run checks, surface exceptions, merge results. That changes what you should ask Claude Code to do. For a code-based migration, you can ask it to map the affected modules, identify risky patterns, define the migration plan, split the work by package, run tests, and report the exceptions. For a dependency upgrade, it can find incompatible call sites, assign parallel checks, patch common patterns, and separate real blockers from noise. For a test suite repair, it can investigate failures by area, compare independent findings, and only bring you the unresolved decisions. For documentation, it can scan the codebase, detect stale docs, update examples, and verify that the claims match actual APIs. This is the real drop. Not a smarter chat box, but a coordination layer for software work. And now the earlier gems make more sense. Effort control matters because some subtasks need cheap speed and others need deep reasoning. Long context matters because the coordinator needs continuity across the run. Cleaner tool use matters because parallel agents multiply tool mistakes. Mid-task system messages matter because the harness needs to update permissions, budgets, and constraints while work is happening. So how should you use Opus 4.8 tomorrow? Here is the operating model. Use lower effort for quick tasks. Use high or extra effort for planning, architecture, debugging, and long-running work. Feed long context as curated memory, not a landfill. Build agent loops around inspect, edit, test, and verify. If you build agent systems, use mid-task system messages when permissions, budgets, or environment context change, and save dynamic workflows for jobs too large for one thread. Before a migration, do this. Ask Opus 4.8 to map the repo. Ask it to identify risk areas. Ask it to define a migration plan. Give it the relevant tests and constraints. Then use dynamic workflows or subagents to split work by module. Run tests. Finally, have it summarize exceptions and unresolved decisions. Do not treat Opus 4.8 as just better autocomplete. Treat it as the planning layer for serious work. So yes, Opus 4.8 is a model upgrade. Anthropic says it is more capable than Opus 4.7, stronger on long-running agentic coding, better at tool triggering, and available at the same regular API price. Fast Mode is a faster research preview option at premium pricing, and dynamic workflows are still something to use thoughtfully. But the buried story is bigger than the model card. The buried gem in Opus 4.8 is not just that Claude got smarter, it is that the workflow around Claude is starting to look like an operating system for serious work.